sprinting out, gets hit, and doesn't get in.
Missed it by that much.
We're gonna play football. Yippee!
You're listening to The Review on the OSG Podcasting Network.
And welcome, everybody. This is The Review. It's the OSG Talking College Football, where we review the weekend's action and things that happen, news, notes, nuggets, and otherwise. I'm OSG Phil. He is OSG Nelson. We are the online sports guys, though we are missing Brother Wilkie. At Jay Wilkerson 16 had some other previous engagements today and couldn't make the show. There's an outside chance he might pop in on us before we're done recording here, but we're going to go ahead and get started because life.
Yeah.
Could have been a really interesting week this week, John. Some potential upsets that almost happened, but to use steal kind of a cliched line, missed it by that much.
Oh, yes, I remember now. Missed it by that much.
All right, Don Adams, nicely done. I think that's a Get Smart reference, kids, for the rest of you who are not of a certain age. You had a lot of scores on the board that were close, and it kind of jiggled things up in the polls a little bit, not a whole lot. I'm sure it jiggled things up in the Heisman race when you look at the two quarterbacks who are 1A and 1B when it comes to what's going on. But you had a lot of big numbers. You had some interesting numbers out there. But overall, the teams that we are anticipating getting to the end of the line are still heading in that direction. Just some odd numbers on the way there.
Yeah, and probably the oddest of them would be the Clemson Tigers, who did win their game this week against the University of North Carolina, but I'm not sure you could have had a slimmer margin.
No.
The Tigers are always good, and well, really most of the top teams are good for at least one game each season where they kind of hiccup, they struggle, they have a hard time getting motivated, or any number of reasons. They just really have a game against a team they probably should beat by 30 points, and they barely beat them. And realistically, this game came down to about 2 yards and a 2-point conversion attempt by the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Powell sprinting out, gets hit, and doesn't get in. The ball is fumbled anyway, recovered by Clemson, but the Tigers remain in front with 1:17 to go.
And you asked Mac Brown after the game, the assembled press that were there, why'd you go for two? When you're beaten up and when you're gassed, that's the decision that you make. I was part of a decision-making process like that on the Friday night game where I was standing on the sidelines with a microphone in my hand. Same premise here involving a game on Saturday where you have a coach who is outmanned and outgunned, and he's been hanging in there for 59 minutes and 59 minutes, just under 59 minutes, like 58:43 if my math is right, and you just decide, look, we're going to lay it out there on the table because if this goes to overtime, it could be completely and totally just blown out, and at that point you won't have a chance. Here's your chance to actually win the game in regulation. Zero qualm with Mac Brown wanting to throw all this all out on the table. It's just that the dice didn't come up the way that he was looking.
Oh, no. I mean, really, what do you have to lose in that situation? And just the stuff that I've read from some of the national analysts who kind of went through and looked at what happened, they didn't have any problem with it either. I mean, why not? You've got a chance to beat the number one team in the country. That chance may or may not ever come again.
Yep.
There's a really good chance if you kick the extra point, go to overtime, you never see the light of day, really. So why not? What do you have to lose? The only thing that I questioned in the whole sequence
was the play.
Was the actual play call.
Yeah.
Running Sam Howell, who had a pretty good game for North Carolina, throwing for 144 yards and a couple touchdowns and really operating the offense well. They basically strung him out on a triple option play that went nowhere. He got hit. The ball kind of bounced around, ended up in one of his running back's arms who got tackled. There was no receiver on the short side of the field for him to throw it to. Just a badly executed play, basically game over at that point. But a nice effort by the Tar Heels, not a team that anybody really expected to ever be in that position. And it begs really the big question here about the Clemson Tigers. This may very well be the only time they get pushed the entire season because really they don't have any tough games on the schedule left.
But at the same time, the tape is going to get out from this particular game. You know that coaches are going to be analyzing and dissecting this all season long, and especially in theory, we'll just go ahead and say when they get to the Final Four. And really what a lot of folks were looking at from Clemson was the blocking of the offensive line and the running backs, because when North Carolina was able to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence, it was hurried throws, overthrows, and that kind of thing. On the day, Trevor Lawrence, somewhat normal human numbers, 18 of 30 for 206 and a score, and that was to T. Higgins, who caught 6 of those 18. But I think that the key along the line for Clemson and for Dabo Swinney is to get your blocking squared away, to get your offensive line squared away, to protect Trevor Lawrence for the next year and a half before he ends up going to the NFL draft. Protect your quarterback so your offense can do what we've seen it do over the last year plus.
And while we're on the subject of ACC football, there was another game that really kind of interested me. I don't know in the grand scheme of things how much it's going to have an impact on a national level, but the Wake Forest Demon Deacons are 5-0, John. They're undefeated.
Can we get a soundbite from Brother J-Dub about Wake Forest here?
And they may be onto something. Jamie Newman is probably one of the better quarterbacks that you have not heard of yet this season. Newman threw for 243 yards and a pair of touchdowns in the 27-24 win over Boston College. He also ran for 102 yards on 23 carries.
Yeah, so 5-0 BC is now 3-2 after the loss, and it was tied at 17 at the half, and Scotty Washington caught 5 of those passes for 94 yards and a score. I want to see how Wake Forest hangs on to this going through the part of the conference schedule. So, all right, so you win your first one in the ACC. I want to see how this momentum possibly continues. I want to see what your future tests are going to be like and how you handle success, because right now, Wake Forest is one game away from being bowl eligible and probably taking a trip to Charlotte to hang out in the Belk Bowl come December.
I got news for you. Their next 3 games, versus Louisville, versus Florida State, versus NC State, all 3 games at home. And then they play Virginia Tech, another team struggling. So you're looking at a potential for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons to be 9-0 going into their matchup with Clemson on November 16th.
Okay, that's very brave of you. And like I said, I think Brother Jada needs to chime in on this and let us know what he thinks about Wake Forest, considering he's been on that offensive line and has laid stuff out for Wake Forest in his prime. But I'm looking at more 7-2. I think there's going to be some hiccups in there, but still 7-2 going into your game against Clemson. Hey, this might be one of those years if you can piece it together. 8-4 for Wake Forest, and maybe you go to the Pinstripe Bowl or something like
that. And I want to briefly touch on another ACC team before we move on to some other games involving ranked teams and some really interesting storylines. We're not going to get in too much detail about what the Alabamas and Auburns and everybody else in the world did because, as expected, they took care of business. Want to talk to you an interesting game for those of us here in the Atlanta area. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets went up to Philadelphia and played the Temple Owls and scored 2 points.
Yeesh, I know.
No, it wasn't a 2-run home run. It wasn't a 2-run single or anything of that sort. It was a safety in the third quarter.
It's going to take a while for Jeff Collins to get installed what he wants to get installed. But, of course, the Twitter sphere was more than happy to remind Georgia Tech people that Jeff Collins got beat by the kids he recruited at his old job. So, Temple, 3-1. Anthony Russo, 9 of 22 on the day for 127 and a pick. Ramon Davis ran for 135 yards and 2 scores. But if you're a fan of the North Avenue slide rule jockeys, it's going to take a while, and you're going to need to be patient.
Nice losers reference there. Love that.
Leonard's loser in not a close one. Georgia Tech. It's going to take a while. They're 1-3. It's going to take a while. It's going to be a slog heading in that direction, but it's not going to be that high of a curve when it comes to the learning curve for Georgia Tech. It's going to take a while. Be patient. Jeff Collins has already started to win the press conference and make all the appearances. He's winning the PR battle. Now he's just got to get it transitioned out on the field.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree with you, and that was kind of where I was going in all of this was, are the Georgia Tech folks going to have patience and understand that they've got Collins has a really, really big rebuilding job ahead as he's trying to take Paul Johnson's guys and make them at least competitive, which is a challenge because you're talking about two completely different styles.
Yep.
Another game here that is of some interest, and that's the return of SMU.
Polyester Bowl champs.
Sonny Dykes has made the Mustangs relevant again. They're 5-0 on the season. They've got a good quarterback with Shane Buechele. Same guy who used to play at Texas and got beat out by Sam earlier.
So he portaled, went to SMU, and now he was 21 of 25 for 226 and 3, beating South Florida, who's just a bad football team.
Yeah, that's a whole other issue there. Charlie Strong's days may be numbered. At the very least, I'm thinking there's a really good chance Mr. Strong's going to be paying a visit to the carousel come December.
Yeah.
But Dykes has done a really nice job there with the Mustangs. And they've beaten all the directional Texas schools at this point, and they finally beat somebody outside of the state. You're talking about a team here with some favorable matchups as the season progresses, and they could be kind of a Cinderella there in the American.
Yeah, winning your first one out of the blocks, and I think that could you imagine this will probably be the easiest play on the board when this one goes down if things continue to go the way they are. If let's just say SMU plays UCF in the title game in the American, I think the over would be the play when it comes to this particular game.
Yeah, that game might be a 5 or 6 hour game featuring about 130 or so points.
Check.
Yes. And before we wrap things up here on the first block of the review, where we talk about some of the bigger and better and more intriguing matchups here in college football, obviously we can't get to everything. And realistically, if you want to hear about the top 5 teams, you're probably not tuning into us anyway. So we're going to talk about some of the other teams that are really interesting out there that you might not be paying attention to. Herm Edwards and the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Oh, you play to win the game, and that's what Arizona State has been doing recently.
Yes, they have. 4-1, a big win over the previously undefeated Cal Golden Bears. 3 touchdown runs for Eno Benjamin. And Arizona State looks like they might be one of the, if not the better team in the Pac-12 this year.
4-1, knocking off Cal to put them to 4-1. And these are the right now until I think Herm Edwards can get all of the players that he's looking for to be a part of his program. I think right now you're still in that transitional period. Think of what we talked about with Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. And this is at Arizona State, it's just as much mental as it is physical in what you're seeing out on the field. Eno Benjamin had 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels has turned out to be a very, very solid young talent, 14 of 24 for 174. But you look at what Arizona State is doing right now, and I think that don't expect a whole lot of flashiness, especially against teams that are perceived to be favorites against the Arizona State side. Think of these games probably as going to be grinders more than anything else, and that's what you got with Arizona State and Cal, 7-0 at the break, 14 all after 3 quarters, and then Arizona State puts it together and gets the Duke at the end. So this is not going to be a flashy Todd Graham-y kind of Arizona State team. This is going to be a team that grinds out results and takes the air out of the ball against tougher competition. So Arizona State could be in the discussion when it comes to the Pac-10-12 title, but by the time we're done.
I was not sold on Herm as a head coach. I thought
Nope.
he was out of touch with the game.
Yeah.
But tons of credit to him. And I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see this or not yet. HBO is doing a behind-the-scenes, day-in-the-life, game day story. And one of the 4 schools involved, along with Florida, Penn State, Washington State, and Arizona State.
Hard knocks ASU.
But it gets them out there. It gets their
does.
names out there. It gets them basically, it's not, I wouldn't necessarily call it free publicity, but it gets them out there on a national platform and considered with some of the national level teams.
Yep. No, and that's what, when you have Herm, who I guess is more of a CEO for this football team than anything else, what do good CEOs do? They try to find ways to market their product and to get their product out there, to get it noticed and get it recognized on a national scale. Hey, if you're like, let's phrase it this way. If you're, I would say like a Ralph's or an Albertsons or an In-N-Out Burger or something like that, not a lot of folks know you when it comes to being east of the Mississippi. A lot of folks west of the Mississippi know about those kind of grocery stores and know about those kind of restaurant chains. But until you want to put yourself out there in a national way, if you want to build your brand on both sides of the Mississippi and get kids to come to the desert to play football, this is definitely one of the ways to do that. Very, very savvy move by the CEO of Arizona State football.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. I think the first episode debuts this week. I want to say like on Wednesday it drops. As they go behind the scenes with the Florida Gators as they get prepared for their game against Townsend State, which we're not going to break down here because it ended pretty much exactly the way you probably think it did.
It was Towson, people. Calm down.
John, when we come back, we got a few other things to talk about. We mentioned Mike Leach in the Washington State Cougars a little while ago. Mr. Leach, mouth got maybe a little bit ahead of his brain after their game this weekend.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Got that and a few other interesting tidbits to talk about, including some coaches, a few other this, that, and the other.
Bye-bye.
All that and more coming up on the second half of the review. Stick around, folks. We'll be back in exactly, well, maybe not exactly, but pretty close to 2 minutes. Two.
The online sports guys would love to hear from you. Go to our Twitter page at OSG Sports for a comment, rant, or just whatever's on your mind about college football.
Everybody buckle up. Buckle up.
Let's go.
Buckle up.
Can we go to the store? Mom, can we get some ice cream?
Everybody, buckle up.
A lot goes on in the car, but you're in control. So only move when you hear the click that says they're buckled in. Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back to The Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
If you want to scale a mountain, buy boots. If you want to turn your crush into something more, say hi. At Country Financial, we know protecting the things you love and preparing for tomorrow start with simple steps. So we help you take small steps today with insurance and financial services that can have a big impact on your family's future.
For all your home, auto, and life insurance needs, call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871.
Well, we're a very soft team. You know, we get a lot of good press. We like to read it a lot. We like to pat ourselves on the back. You know, and if we get any resistance, we fold.
Hey, thanks for sticking around, everybody. You are listening to The Review. It's the OSG Sports team talking what we like to talk about, and that's college football. If you were around for the first block, you heard us talk about some of the bigger, at least the more noteworthy games on a week where there weren't a whole lot of them. Most of the big boys played games that they should and did win pretty comfortably with no real storylines coming out of them. And we tried to hit on a few games that were also interesting, at least to us, and thought you guys might want to be at least up to speed on because some of them were out on the West Coast, quite honestly.
We want to include you in on our conversations.
Yes, we do. And you might ask yourselves,
how do we do that?
Well, it's pretty easy. If you want to go to that social media thing, we're really easy to find. Because we are OSG Sports, you can find us at, wait for it, at OSG Sports on both Twitter and on Facebook.
And on YouTube.
Oh, yes, that's right. And on YouTube, too. Makes it really easy. All of our name shows up in all of those places. You can catch the latest, the greatest in college football. I strongly recommend you sticking around. Oh, yeah, sorry, can't forget. We have a phone app, too. It's free, and you can get it on the iTunes store. You can get it from iTunes, and you can get it from Google Play. But what I was going to tell everybody is a little bit about the Rivalry and Trophy Game show, which really, quite honestly, is my favorite show that we do each week.
It's fun.
And that's when Brother Wilkie and Brother John, and occasionally me, go take you behind the scenes. It's some college football's biggest rivalry games, biggest trophy games, and more importantly, a lot of games that you probably never heard of that have some crazy, crazy good backstories. It's the Rivalry and Trophy Game show right here on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. But John, before we wrap up with the review, we want to hit some stuff here in the second block. Probably the biggest news and something that broke early Sunday morning, and that's Rutgers parting ways with head coach Chris Ash after a handful of pretty disastrous seasons.
And I'm sure, and the jokes write themselves. Don't let the door hit you in the ash on the way out. Your offense is so bad it sucks ash. Those are the first two that popped into my brain off the top of my head. But I'm sure there are a lot of ash jokes going along right now. And apparently, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, if you believe the printed word and the rumor, gossip, and innuendo that is on social media for the replacement.
Yes, that would be a blast from the past. A guy whose name surfaced for a head coaching job not long ago in the college ranks, and he was summarily ostracized, ridiculed, and then pretty much any other descriptive adjective you want to use. That would be former Tampa Bay Buccaneer head coach, former Ohio State defensive coordinator, former New England Patriots defensive coach because he was with them very recently, at least up until March. His name, Greg Schiano.
Former Rutgers head coach.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Of course, it's not been made official.
No.
If you, like us, read up on all things college football, you'll see there's quite a bit of discussion that Schiano's brief tenure with the Patriots may have just been a placeholder for him once he knew that Rutgers had some interest should they decide to make Mr. Ash go away. And considering how bad the Ash tenure was at Rutgers, the fact that he did go away was not a big surprise. The Scarlet Knights were 8-32 in his 40-game tenure. And this was on the heels of moving to the Big Ten as basically a money grab, maybe by the Big Ten.
Needed that New York media market.
Yes, and a little bit more juice to get a bigger TV contract. And Rutgers has basically been the doormat of the league since their addition to the league. It really didn't show much signs of getting any better.
No. 0-4. Let's see, 14 straight losses in the Big Ten. Tight ends coach Nunzio Campanile is going to be the interim for the
Nunzio.
Yeah. Little FBI going on for the rest of 2019.
What better than a coach, at least interim coaching in New Jersey by the name of Nunzio?
But get this. I mean, Nunzio Campanile came from Bergen Catholic. So I understand why he was brought into the Rutgers staff. You want to keep the kids inside the state of New Jersey, the former head coach of Bergen Catholic, powerhouse there in the state. I get it. And honestly, the only thing that pops into my head now, if Schiano returns, is just the theme to welcome back Cotter. We tease him a lot. We tease him a lot because we got him on the spot. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out.
So you're giving me bumper material?
You know it. 3-26 in Big Ten play, 2 winless seasons in the conference. It was time for a change.
Yes. Speaking of unexpected yet expected things, a little bit of a controversy going on up at Washington State. Yeah, where the Pirate spoke again after his team's 38-13 loss to Utah, which that into itself isn't that surprising. The Utes are pretty good.
Yes.
The Cougars, however, I thought were at least a little bit better than that, and probably I would have assumed they would have given Utah a little bit better of a game.
Yeah.
In his post-game comments, Leach referred to his players as fat, dumb, happy, and entitled. He said, quote, "We're a very soft team. We get a lot of good press. We like to read it a lot. We like to pat ourselves on the back, and if we get any resistance, we fold."
We get a lot of good press. We like to read it a lot. We like to pat ourselves on the back. And if we get any resistance, we fold. And what's amazing about this is most of these guys were on the same team last year. That was a tough team. Last year's team was a tough team for us. And we got nearly the same guys, and now all of a sudden they're not tough. They're fat, dumb, and happy and entitled.
First off, what do you think his class on campus at Washington State's going to be like? Second, what do you think that the College Hard Knocks show on HBO is going to be like, considering that Washington State is going to be a part of this? And how much of this is playing to that camera?
Considering the source, a lot of it probably is. What has caught my attention, though, is the fact that there's some people really kind of hammering and criticizing him for saying that.
It's who he is.
Whatever. It's who he is. And I get in the politically correct world that we currently live in, you're not supposed to say mean things about people that your charges. You're not supposed to use insults when describing them. But if you can't say that, what can you say?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just Mike Leach. When Mike Leach was hired at Washington State, this was the individual that you got. If you don't understand that externally, if you're a fan of the team around the Palouse or a fan wherever, this is the gentleman that you got when you hired him in the first place. And
I'm curious where the outrage is coming from, because I don't think that it's coming from the Washington State fans.
Yeah, so I just look, they know what they were getting into when they brought him in, and I mean this in the collective, for anyone who is criticizing Leach at Washington State, look at your program, the one that you're a fan of, and figure out where that happens in your dynamic, because I'm sure it happens in your favorite team's places. It just happens with different phraseology.
Yeah. And sometimes not quite as politely as that, because he didn't use any curse words.
No.
He didn't use any slurs or anything like that. He used descriptive adjectives.
Mm-hmm.
Take that as you will.
As you will.
As you will.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Before we wrap things up here on the review, our weekly look at everything going on the weekend of college football to kind of kick off your week on a Monday.
Check.
The Associated Press poll's already out, and we have a new number one, John.
I'm shocked.
I know you'll be totally surprised as to who it is.
Yeah.
It's the Alabama Crimson Tide.
I'm stunned.
Yes, as the defending champs, the Clemson Tigers drop a spot after their struggles with North Carolina. I mean, maybe that's right. Maybe it's not right. I mean, does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? Probably not, because you're talking about two teams more than likely who will be in the playoff come December.
Yeah.
But it's interesting nevertheless, because the old adage, and an adage that I use in the Dirty Dozen bottom of the barrel column that I write each week, to quote Ric Flair, to be the man, yeah, you got to beat the man.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I'm saying, woo!
Woo! Right now, nobody's done it.
Nope.
I don't see anybody beating Clemson, even with the scare that they had this week. I really don't.
Yeah, that's my Final Four has not changed. It is going to probably anger some folks. I know that it's going to be Georgia. It's going to be the two teams in the SEC championship game. The third team that is not going to be in that discussion of Alabama, LSU, and Georgia will not be a part of that Final Four. So it's going to be SEC 1, SEC 2, Clemson, and probably Ohio State. That hasn't changed since the beginning of the year for me, and I don't anticipate it changing anytime soon.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk by multiple columnists that I've already seen today, as we record this on a Sunday afternoon, that Ohio State should be your number one team.
No.
I think that's a little far-fetched at this point. They look great. They put up a lot of points.
Yeah.
They dominated Nebraska this past Saturday night in Nebraska, 48-7 in a game that really even wasn't that close.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a really good team that beat a team that isn't anywhere in the same league as they are.
Nope.
Even though they're in the Big Ten. I know that, so don't even go there. But until they play Michigan, until they play Penn State, until they play Wisconsin, I'm not ready to give Ohio State that nod because their schedule is just soft.
And a lot of folks are also discussing the notion that Justin Fields should be the quarterback at the University of Georgia instead of Jake Fromm.
No, he shouldn't.
It's two separate systems. Justin Fields is his skill set is orchestrated one day that fits more what Ryan Day wants to do as opposed to Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart wants the kind of quarterback that Jake Fromm is. Justin Fields probably did the best thing in portaling out of Georgia, even though everything around it, the whole concept of portaling, it just kind of disgusts me in the first place. But Justin Fields going to another campus did more to benefit his career and elevate his status.
And the career of several other people.
Yeah, no doubt. So just look, Georgia's meant to be a certain way. Ohio State's meant to be a certain way. Let Jake Fromm be Jake Fromm at Georgia. Let Justin Fields be Justin Fields at Ohio State. Don't mix the two.
Yeah, and it's an interesting discussion and one that's going to come up at least 1,000 times here over the next few weeks as Ohio State continues to win games, and so will Georgia, I'm pretty sure.
No doubt.
Two different guys, two entirely different quarterbacks, two entirely different systems.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure you could take Justin Fields and put him at Wisconsin and have him be as successful as he currently is. You could take Jake Fromm and put him in Wisconsin, and he'd be really, 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 really good.
Mm-hmm.
The flip side is you take Fields, put him at Oklahoma, he's going to put up the same numbers that Jalen Hurts is, and Fromm probably would not.
Yeah.
Two different guys, two different type of players, two different systems. Not to say that either one of them's right or either one of them's wrong. They just work for what the system is that they're in.
Check.
And before we wrap things up, And to that point, I wanted to mention one other thing, the play of the week.
Oh.
And that's Bully,
yeah.
Bulldog getting hit on the sidelines. Not really hit, more like...
Bully got hit by Booby!
And he didn't break anything.
Well, Bully stood him up, which is more than I could say for the rest of Mississippi State in that game against Auburn.
Yeah, I was going to say something along those same lines. But a good play if you want to get a chance to see it. I'll see if I can find the audio to plug in here for the show if you're listening to the podcast.
All right.
And with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. John, what do you say we do that?
I think your new team at the bottom of the barrel is Akron after losing to UMass in a battle of 0-4s. UMass gets the Duke, beats Akron 37-29.
Yeah, we got to see the lowest against the lowest, and then it took it to a new low. And speaking of the bottom of the barrel, a new show that'll pop this week, hopefully on Tuesday nights.
There you go.
Is a look at the best and worst in college football. We call it the Dirty Dozen and the bottom of the barrel for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's our top 12 teams, and it's the bottom 5 teams in college football, because why make it a top 25 when really there's only 12 teams that matter? And why not have a bottom of the barrel? Because for all the teams that you hear about that are really good, there's some teams out there that are kind of comically bad too, and we can't ever pass up a punchline. So why not?
And it's always good to stand on 17 anyway.
Yes. A nice odd even number, not the number commonly used by everybody else, because 17 just sounds a whole lot better than 25. So why the hell not?
And you're over if you're playing 21.
Exactly. You stand a pretty good chance of at least competing, if not winning, with 17.
Yep.
John, I think that wraps things up here for the review. We said in the last block where you can find us.
Yep.
We have a phone application for those of you who are into such things, where you can get all of our content, including this show, including the bottom of the barrel and the Dirty Dozen, including the Trophy Game Show, and content from our friends at barnburner.ca.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who they are. They're the Canadian version, more or less the Canadian version of us, I think.
Yep, and they are putting out a whole lot of content. They help us out with our wrestling content. We help them out with lacrosse and football and college football. So we are like co-network partners, and we have taken the NAFTA deal and turned it on its ear. One other thing before we go from the Rivalry and Trophy Game Show, last week we spent time discussing the battle for the paddle when it comes to Nicholls State and Texas. The paddle goes to San Marcos as Texas State, the Bobcats, knock off Nicholls State. So that was the end result of the Battle of the Paddle and the Trophy Game Show and Rivalry Show from last week.
Always good to keep things updated.
Yep.
All right. And with that all being said, I think we'll wrap things up here. For the Online Sports Guys, I am OSG Phil, and you are
OSG Nelson, last time I checked, on all social media platforms.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking around. We'll be back with this show again next week. Make sure you tune in to all of our shows on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. And in the meantime, have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.
Enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.
Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
Sherman? Forget it, he's rolling.
And it ain't over now.